do we have a call?
And we're live. Yeah, we do. And we're live. It just comes up fast sometimes. I don't know how these interwebs work, Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup. This just in, breaking news. And the breaking news is, the headline is, let me read it exactly. Hot yoga may help alleviate moderate to severe depression symptoms.
Duh!
Just absolutely amazing, but also awesome that that article came out. This has been shared across a few studios. It came up on my newsfeed because I have a Google alert for this sort of stuff too. But I think what's interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about marketing today, so stick it through with us here because we started that discussion off camera. What's cool when you get, this has been shared across a few. Oh, thanks. Sorry. What's cool when you get an article like this, or when you see an article like this come out, they used to be more prevalent, is just, it's another form of social proof that you can leverage in your studio. Now, you can obviously just share the article and share what's going on, but the one thing that I don't see a lot of studios doing that I think could be extremely powerful from a leverage marketing perspective now is, one, I choose a couple things. One, like, use this stuff to educate your team. So I would immediately share this article with your team, but I would go further than that. I would actually have some sort of a discussion with them. If you have a Slack channel with your team, this is a great example of something to do a little video on and talk about your opinion of, and read through the details of the study, et cetera, and talk about it and just help them understand it more. I feel like we forget to market to our own team, to sell them on the power of what we're doing and how that can empower them. One, and two, we're in the day and age with sort of the TikTokification of marketing and everything else right now, where reaction marketing and you being the news has a renewed benefit. And that statement in marketing has been around for a long time, be the news yourself. But the concept essentially is, when something like this comes out, if you're the local expert on hot yoga, then you should weigh in on it. So it's more than just sharing the article. It's sharing the article and then talking about it, and then talking about it from both sides and doing sort of a reaction to it. Even if what you're saying is against it, I know that sounds weird, but the point is, it can start a conversation for you. And that's what I don't see happening. And it's just so easy, especially because it's real time. You just have to jump on and break it down. So yeah, there's my quick 2 cents on it. If you haven't read the article, I'll post it afterwards down below here. But the bottom line is, the cool part was, most people reported feeling better, but were actually tested and had a larger than 50% decrease in symptoms of the IDSCR, whatever scale it is, of the symptoms of depression. After only, let me just read what it says here. It's only 8 weeks of classes, and on average, they only did 10 classes. The point being, the prescribed number of classes they were supposed to do was 20. It was 2 per week. Most of them only did 10 in the 8 weeks. So they did less than the prescribed amount, and still they all had this reaction. So if that isn't something that works, I don't know what is.
I think that data is really interesting. That's something you should mention and talk about to people. Because yoga teachers especially tend to think that you have to practice at least 3 times a week. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. You should really practice every day. If we've done the Bikram training, we've been a little bit indoctrinated with, yoga every day. But, this is just another piece of proof that, for the fact that it can work really well with a once a week practice. And there's a big group of people who are happy to do once a week, but they can't really commit to more. So I think, that's kind of a big thing coming out of that.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a client. I'm just putting a thing here about this very thing, because and I think you're particularly right with us OG Bikram people, particularly indoctrinated, every day 30, all that stuff. And that's just can be so intimidating for so many people. And it tends to be more with the older, longer term, like OG Bikram teachers, where they're still saying that, oh, you've got to come at least 3-4 times a week to see the benefit. And that is like, people are not buying the membership because of that, because they think, oh, I've got to do that. Whereas what the studio director is trying to get them to shift is that, and we talk about this at the training, the first thing in success and practice is consistency and then frequency. So getting the consistency of it, we recommend the 2 times a week, which is attainable for people. And we forget, we want to make this attainable for the general population, because those of us who become yoga teachers, we do it because we're so passionate about it. Yeah, we are there 4, 5, 6 days a week. And that's not the majority of people. We see this a lot at the on-sites. And I know you and Carol, Josh and Carol just got back from one. I'm sure it's still the same, is when people like, oh, we're used to seeing, and the teachers key into those people that they see all the time, forgetting that the broad swath of people at a yoga studio are not there every single day, are not there 4 or 5, they're there 6 to 8 times a month. And why we see the membership cancellations at that 3 to 4 month mark is because the more I do these on-sites, the more I look at the data, I'm firmly convinced that the teachers, they're missing these people. They're absolutely missing these people because they're not there all the time. And I'll even go as far as to say, I've said this on a couple of my clients this last week or so, is that they're really, when it boils down to, only one reason why people cancel a yoga membership, barring something very unusual, like high-risk pregnancy or a severe injury or moving out of the area. That really is a reason why someone can't keep their yoga membership. It boils down to one thing, and I'll double down this one thing only. It's because you and your team have not done a good enough job convincing people showing them the value of a yoga practice. Because if they really buy into that, then they will find the money, they will find the time, they will find the resources to stay on their yoga membership. That's like hard truth. Preach, hard truth, hard truth.
Well, value outweighs everything, right? So, and the value equation is the perceived likelihood of success versus the cost of participation. Cost not just being finance, but like effort and energetics and feeling around it and time as well. If I really believe that I can succeed, if I'm really getting benefit, and that is significantly proportionally more than what I perceive the cost of participation to be, then something is high value. Then I want to stay on my membership. I wanted to pitch over to Carol in a second, but just to double down on what you're saying, I think, the other thing that we see with cancellations and the student base that we might not be aware of, and the studio we were just at had this exact experience where people's perception of whether it's valuable enough versus the price changes over time based off of their lifestyle, until you get that person that's practiced long enough, they're a lifetime member. And it's like, I don't care. Like for me now, if I have a membership, I don't care if I don't come in for 2 weeks. I'm not like, oh, I didn't come in for 2 weeks, I should probably cancel my membership. Like that's irrelevant to me, because I'm paying for the membership to have access to it when it's convenient for my life. And it's going to be part of my life as a permanence, period. Like there's no question about that. So I'm not weighing on a monthly basis the expense versus how much I'm practicing. But when people are new, they are doing that. And this narrative in the yoga world of like, you should practice X times per week or blah, 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 in a weird way, indirectly indoctrinates that philosophy into people. If you tell me that like, really for me to maximize my benefits, I should practice 3, 4, 5 days a week, and then like, oh, it's exam month, so I'm not really going to be able to practice, I better cancel. When like, we all know that doesn't make sense actually. Like that would be the worst time to cancel. If you're during exam month in the university, that's when, yeah, maybe you practice less, but that's when you should be practicing. You should be taking care of yourself more than ever during that time. So in a roundabout way, those narratives do influence the culture of the studio and how people behave. And I think that we don't realize that. Now, it also don't go the other way necessarily and be like, no, you shouldn't practice 6 days a week. Like practice as much as you want, but just the point is you're looking at over a larger time horizon of practice rather than like how much are you making it in per week or per month. Carol, you said something so brilliant when we were at the onsite about the pre and post class. You had a name for it.
Oh yeah, we called it uptime at our studio. So the pre-class 20 minutes when everyone was coming in and 20 minutes after whenever everyone was leaving was, we called everyone in the studio that was working had to be standing up, phones down, and you're trained on, like, if it's the entry, your eyes on the front door, you're always going to say hello to every person, use their name, and same thing on the exit. Like everybody was up, and that focus was getting every contact point with everybody. And, it's interesting being in a studio and on the ground, I was keying into that a bit at the studio, the onsite, and whether it's happening or not, or if that's something that you are implementing in your studio, we saw a huge, I think, connection with people at that point. And I think that's really important. And it just became part of if I didn't see it happening at my studio, one, I was going to be the one standing up and doing it. And two, we're going to have a discussion afterwards with the person. Even when I see somebody now kind of sitting or slumping or leaning at the studio, it just there's something about it that it just makes me feel a certain way. Because I think it's really important. And that's part of the, connection that we need with people. What I was thinking about, guys are talking about these, I think it's important to remember to market to your beginners as they're going through this journey. And like you were kind of saying earlier, we talk about it a lot, but the transformation that people see in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, just from I couldn't touch my toes before and now I can. And then they get into month 3 and maybe the change isn't as visible, or they're not seeing something major happening, but we know stuff is happening. That's where we market to them and explain there's still stuff happening, and that just keep them on membership longer. So that's what was coming up for me in discussion. So
I was going to 2 things to what you just said. I've coached a lot of my clients to this, because we do know that, and I think particularly in our current society here in the United States, I'll speak for us, is that we have the attention spans of gnats. And like you said, we get that really big positive change at the beginning, and then we get frustrated when we're not seeing that, and oh, this isn't working, and I go into the next bright shining thing. I go try this, or I go try that. And that is often where we can start layering in our membership nurture campaign emails the benefit of getting a testimonial from a longer term member talking about the changes that they've seen and how it's impacting their life over time, to kind of let people know that it's normal. In fact, one of my clients is the subject line of the email, it's normal to hit a plateau. Right. And what happens, and just to your point, Carol, is talking about, yes, there are changes happening. You may not see those big changes you saw in the beginning, but you're still getting changes. So that's you can look at that messaging. And then the other thing, when you said that about, you called it uptime. Disney does this. It's called I had a friend who worked for Disney. It's called onset. And so if you're working at Disney, doesn't matter whether you're a Disney character or security or wherever you're working, everybody, if you are in it's called on set. And if another character, someone might come up to you and you would say, sorry, I'm on set, then that was code. I'm doing my job. Particularly when they're in the character costumes, right? Particularly when they're characters, they were very, very specific about it. Even conversations between staff, if they were on set, they were on set 100% with what their job was, which was to make the experience at Disney. So I think I love that uptime. I think that's great. Josh.
Yeah, to Carol's point too, uptime, I think that concept just simplifies in one sentence exactly what we're trying to do, which is let people be seen in your community. And it's really fascinating. All of the studios that we've gone to over the last year, we have gone through some effort to check on this. And I would say the majority, if not all of them, have had a similar situation where the team is there and the team is nice and the team is talking to the people that they know at the studio or is having conversations when a student comes to them. But that's not the same thing as them like kind of grabbing the reins of the situation and in this uptime moment, actively, to Carol's point, like eyes on the door, saying hello to everyone, figuring out everyone's name and like actually engaging them. So we go back to practice frequency, marketing, benefits of hot yoga, etc. I think that we all know, like, if you say this to anyone in the yoga world, you know, if you engage people by name and we're friendly with them and they feel seen, then they're going to stick around. Like, we all know that that conceptually makes sense, but the practical implementation of it is sometimes softer than it could be. And there's just a big opportunity. So really practical thing to check. This is part of your marketing. So spin us over to that for a minute. Because you were talking marketing before. Part of marketing is to create a situation where people know, like, and trust you. Part of marketing is it's the exercise of memorization. You have to be memorable, but you're memorable through repetition, and you're also memorable through clarity in my mind. And part of clarity comes from me understanding who you are and what you do, but especially this is where the like client avatar concept comes in, especially if I'm very clear that you understand my problems, you understand me. And as soon as I think that your business understands me in a deeper way, then I automatically start to trust you a little bit more. I become curious about you and I memorize you and I can do business with you. I wouldn't underestimate the power of this stuff that we've just talked about too, that like, that's still part of your marketing. If someone's in their first 3 months of practice with you, like they're not a full member yet, and, or they're still in that first phase, you have a very limited number of hits to market to them, that you see them, that you understand them, that this product works for them. That's the time. And there's nothing that's going to be more powerful than the person standing in front of you face to face. So it is by extension part of your marketing and sales system as well. But marketing, what were we talking before? Go ahead, Terry.
Well, I was just gonna ask the question to you, Carol, because you did this at your studio and with other studios, was that actually written in the expectations for the teachers? And saying specifically, because I just had the thought that a lot of times we will say this to people. Sounds like you did it really well, but in a lot of studios, like, oh, you're going to do this, but is it actually written out that this is exactly what you're going to do at 20 minutes before class? You will be here, your phone will be away, you will be standing up. I mean, do you feel that that could be a real benefit to have and to train people on? Because I'm thinking I did it intuitively. Some teachers do it intuitively, but other teachers may not. And are we missing an opportunity in our training does that make sense, Carol?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of our training. When we train people, I'm not really written, or if we just communicated it really well to our team and then had like about it, and then as people were onboarded, we just said, this is how we do it, and taught them the way. But there was at some point like a written communication to our whole team that like, this is how it's going to happen. And like, it takes a little bit of finesse because there are the people that don't quite get it. So you have to follow up, obviously, but it became very normal in our studio. It's like, okay, time, and it's like the door unlocks and then here we are. Yeah. Down. So yes, I think it was written and trained.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a great training video because we do at the on-sites, we'll do training videos on selling the membership, doing this, overcoming objection, flipping resistance. That would be a really good training video where you film an interaction at like beginning of the class, or just even do it mock. But that I think would be so for visual learners, that would be a really great training video to do.
I think it's interesting too, like, because we talk about body language is such a huge part of communication. I mean, it's interesting, again, being on the on-sites to see like if you're leaning and look, like, does that look different than, like really turning your shoulders towards somebody? Little things like that can make a big difference. So just something to think about. Yeah.
We gamified at one of the on-sites. There was a front desk person that we were training. They were doing a pretty good job, but we changed the sign-in process. So we sort of gamified it for a minute. And the challenge was every single person that comes in, you have to say hello to them and say their name before they leave the desk. And if you get it, then you get, I don't know, it was like $20 or something. Like we had like a little cash there. And I think they did get it, or it was like close enough, they were like 95%, but just those little nuances that you're referring to, Carol, it's like finding a way to like indoctrinate the entire philosophy into your team and actually practice it. Because it's very easy to say some of this stuff, but I think that's one of the things we're learning from some of these on-sites is people very often on a call are like, yeah, this is happening. And then we get there and we're like, it's kind of not actually happening, and part of that is it's a two-parter. One is as the owner, like sitting down, being the fly in the wall, really observing and really like taking notes as you're observing a little bit, just like you would audit a class that someone was running, audit your own team at the front desk. And then two, finding a way to, put it in writing, have the video, but like train them, get them on board with it, explain it to them, spend the time to practice that through.
I remember her exactly. And it was also we asked about not the check-in, but the opening checklist, what happened with and she goes, oh yeah, well, I got it down. I threw it away. And she was, of course,
that was right.
missing like half the things on the checklist. She was doing the things she liked to do. So it's like, okay, no, we don't throw the opening checklist away. And then she was a young,
that was really funny.
She was a teenager. She was lovely. She was a young woman, lovely young woman. But Josh asked her point blank, what motivates you? And she, without a hesitation, goes, money. Not even, she
didn't blink.
She didn't even blink.
I need more money. I was like, okay.
And that's
a good one.
Yeah, that's an
we
easy
can solve
one, right?
that. Yeah. That's
and
an easy
one.
one.
And here's the thing, the class, because I was there and I was kind of keeping track of it. The thing is that the class had 50 people. It wasn't as small. This studio had a big capacity and there were 50 people. And she was able to say at 50 people's names during sign-in. So if you think you can't do it, if your studio has like a 20 person or 20, this young woman did it with 50 people. She was so into it. She'd chase people. Oh, Josh, good to see you.
She almost missed one person and she chased them down. Yeah. She was like, hey, I just wanted to say,
have a great
class. Yeah, it was really good.
Gosh. I wish we had filmed that. But yeah, it just goes to show that, with the right motivation, with the right training, anything's possible. It really is. Anything is possible. Yeah, totally. I just chuckled about that.
I'm building a webinar right now for someone around marketing stuff and lead acquisition. And before we jumped on, Vicki, you had mentioned that we experienced someone who actually spent the full recommended budget amount on their marketing. And we were all like, whoa, what? Because, the average studio spends like less than 3% on marketing. Break it down for us a little bit.
I felt like I found a unicorn. It was a studio that had not previously done coaching. And when we checked their numbers and their expenses, they actually spent 7% of their total revenue on marketing already. So I was amazed. Well,
here's a follow-up question. What are the results looking like from that expense?
So the thing is, this is two owners. They are paying themselves a good wage, both of them. And the studio is making a profit. And it has done, it opened during COVID, so things were a bit, up and down. They were closed for a long time and so on. But since they've been open again, they have been making a profit and paying themselves. So now they just want to finesse things and, pay themselves even more and make things even more awesome and create more freedom for themselves. But the point is, it works. When you do spend that amount on your marketing, then it works. You see the results. You have to do it right, of course. So, can it be done more efficiently? Potentially. They were doing Google ads, Meta ads, and they did they create a lot of content, really good videos and so on, very professional looking videos. And they actually put one of their marketing videos, they paid the local cinemas to put it before the trailers of the Barbie movie when that was super hyped in the summer. So I don't know, that was probably like really expensive, I should imagine. I've never heard a studio do this before, like an actual commercial in the cinema, but they had a bumper summer. So yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, right. And can you make a direct correlation to, I spent $2,000 to put this ad up in the local cinema, and then this number of people came in and I got this exact return on ad spend? Like, probably not. And also, like, is it worth going to that level of effort to do it? But I remember being approached by the cinema in the town we were in to do those ads, and I cheaped out and didn't do them. I thought they were a brilliant idea, but I, at the time, wasn't confident in our ability to produce a quality enough video to go on there at a price point that we could afford, plus pay the ad spend. So we didn't do it. But I think it's brilliant. Like, that's a good example, depending on the market you're in, that could make a lot of sense, you know, whereas you have a captive audience of people who are, yeah, I don't know, that could be awesome.
Well, the other thing, and just kind of piggyback on that as well, is depending on, like, here in Dayton, there's a local, it's called the Neon, and it's more of an art house place, but they play Barbie. We saw Barbie there. So they do get some mainstream movies, but they also get like off mainstream movies. But anyway, the demographic of people that go there are probably the demographic of people that I know, because a demographic of people that do yoga, right? So, you know, there's an opportunity there. You know, the other one was, I knew a studio in the Boston area that advertised on the local NPR station, which, you know, so, you know, yes, some of those initiatives can be pricey, and at the same time, if it really fits your demographic, then it might be worth maybe taking a look at some of those things. Like, there's
it's your avatars, isn't it?
Yeah,
where are their eyes? That's one of the first questions we ask when we start to work with marketing with someone, is who are your avatars and where are their eyes? What are their values? What are their habits? So if you know them really well and you got that down, then, you know, some sort of unusual ways to advertise could actually work super well.
Yeah.
And I think that the detail that's so important about that as well, to Vicky's point, is like, there's a difference between where are the eyeballs of the people who are participating in your yoga studio, or where your avatar's eyeballs are, and where do you, as a local business, feel like you want to support things, or where do you go? The example would be, to clarify that, is like, there was this like coffee shop news little one pager thing that would come out once a month, and it was in all the coffee shops in the town that we were in. And when we first started, I advertised in it because we lived downtown, we walked everywhere, we went to all the coffee shops, we were friends with all those owners, we were part of the same small business associations, we knew the person who ran that thing. And I was like, this is great, I practice yoga, other people will see this, it makes sense. 0 people came in off of that. Like, when we tried to test it, we put special things in there or whatever. On the other hand, we advertised on the radio, and we got a bunch of people who came in off of that despite the expense, because the town we were in, most of the people drove everywhere, drove to work and back. It was a commuter town with thoroughfares. So like, and they listened to the local radio stations. There was 2 or 3 of them that were like actually listened to. So it's not like I wanted to support local and be part of the whatever else, but like, that wasn't where the eyeballs of the people who were actually practicing in the studio were. Or ears in this case, I suppose, but same difference. I think the marketing budget thing I was going to comment on, Terry, most studios we're seeing are spending 3% or less on marketing. And it's not to say that you have to spend more, but it's just an indicator of like mental prioritization on this. So what's your thought? Like, why are studio owners reluctant to spend on marketing? What's the barrier?
I think, because I know I was certainly guilty of this, I think it's like maybe not understanding it and where I should be spending my money. And and how to quantify it, because it is sort of like you said, is this thing that I'm putting money into yielding results? And I think to approach it is, and having a solid marketing strategy, and what is it that you're marketing, right? And is it your intro offer? Or is it a value add? Because I think with if you're marketing an intro offer, there is, I think, more correlation there. But to your point about the coffee shop, it's that's like a value add to me, because you are supporting the local. You say you didn't get anything off of it, Josh, but I would bet that people saw you in there and would support you because of that. Or at least you were plugged into your local community, right? And that gave you some maybe authority in the community as the yoga studio. And maybe I don't do yoga, but I refer somebody to, because those are some of those things I think, because I'm all about hashtag Terry's dad. You gotta support the local, the local community. So I do think some of those things that have direct, but I do feel it just gives you the know, like, and trust that you're part of the local community. You're not this sort of hippy dippy outlier kind of thing. But then I think also the reluctance is, then sometimes I think it's just they're doing well and they've got people coming in the door, so I don't need to market. However, we always say you market when you're busy, so you don't get slow. And I had a client, I'll get bounce to you here in a second, Vicki. I have a client that was doing some advertising during the summer, was like, oh, I don't, and so he turned it off. And guess what? Direct correlation with next couple of months, number of new visits took a dive. I'm like, so you just got to look at that sometimes. And it's marketing is an expense. It's like having employees or having staff, whether it's employers or not. But you have to have people teach your yoga classes. You need to be spending money on advertising. Vicki.
Yeah, I see that one barrier to studios not spending on marketing is that they don't really know what content to put out there in their marketing or how to produce it. They get a bit they overcomplicate it and think that a marketing video has to be something that is super sleek and professionally produced. Like you said, Josh, you didn't think you could put something in the cinema because you couldn't produce something that was enough quality. Whereas actually, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be something super simple. You can film it on your phone, a simple script, and then you can put the ads together yourself. And I think studio owners just don't know how to do those things and kind of just need a little bit of help. And then they're off and they're doing it on their own suddenly. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point. If you don't have the vision for what it is that you're going to put out for marketing and advertising, then it's harder to do that. I was just going to add the comment to your point that you're right, and that the reluctance to put that stuff in the cinema, but we're in a really interesting moment where more authentic raw level content, as long as the content is quality, does better now. The more produced stuff does not perform as well. So actually, if I was going to run ads at the local cinema today, there's a version of that ad which is just you walking with your iPhone, and I would still run that in a venue like that at this point. The production value is much different. Thanks, Vicki. I'll see you in a minute. So yeah, that's changed. And between just editing tools in general, some different editing services out there, and then now with AI editing, coming up with scripts and then also editing videos has gotten way easier. It is, if I just think back to 10 years ago, how much fucking effort we'd have to put into getting 2 or 3 videos done. And then you would try to extend the use of them for as long as possible. Whereas now, I mean, a quarter of the time. And yeah, it's just producing stuff is much easier now than it's ever been, but it's a new thing to learn, a new habit to have.
Or maybe you have we have a client who has a professional videographer is a member. And so they exchange, that's a straight up exchange. They get an annual membership, and then they create, they do content for him a couple of times a year and create these really quality, because that's a husband-wife duo. And so two annual memberships, yeah, that's some chunk, but she has really high quality videos because of it. So maybe in your community, there's someone there. Like I did that when I needed to update my website and get a professional photo shoot. I had a professional photographer and we exchanged, and she did the photo shoot and it worked out great. So those are some you can always look to within your community for people who have maybe some skills that you could trade for.
Yeah, we see that a lot, actually. That happened at the last couple studios we talked to.
Yeah.
Carol, what about you? What for marketing? I mean, when you're working with clients / even with your past studio, from a budgeting standpoint, how does somebody start to like reconcile the ongoing expense of marketing?
Well, understanding the return that it, you know, and looking at your numbers right now to see like what can you afford. And the bottom line is we can look at your KPIs and tell like from like a perspective of like how many people are in your area. If there aren't enough people coming in, you have to, all right, Josh, see ya. You have to start putting money behind it to get those people in the door. So are we, oh, you got the host. Okay, there we go. We're good. Yeah. So, and we recommend, you know, at least 7% of your gross monthly is spent on ads and, well, in marketing. So that could be somebody you're paying for social media. It could be the ad spend for that kind of stuff. But, and like we were saying, you don't really, what you're doing now in that space, you'll see the result 3 to 6 months after. So it's really, I think that's a hard thing too for owners, is that they think, well, I'm going to do this for a month. I'll put a lot of money behind it for a month and see what happens. But this has to be a long-term play, and sort of switching your mindset around that is a big piece for a long term.
Yeah. A lot of times I think marketing is the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
It's the chicken.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe it's just not physically, you know, financially possible for you to spend, like we recommend 7 to 10%, but maybe you can spend more than you are now on your marketing. And keeping in mind, there's marketing and there's advertising. Those are two different things. So the advertising is like the paid ads, like the paid Google ads, the paid Facebook ads, or whatever you're doing there, any type of paid, right before the Barbie. The marketing is sort of the plan, the overall plan.
Right.
And sometimes the advertising can be for a specific thing, but part of the marketing is just what your message is and building brand awareness.
Yes.
Right, building brand awareness. So there's a lot of things within the marketing umbrella that's beyond just ads.
Yeah.
Ads, but certainly advertising, paid advertising is part of that. So if you're spending very little now, and also like Carol said, looking at your numbers, what is it that you need the most help with? Like I worked with one of our clients, we did an on-site earlier. They had plenty, what they were doing was working. They had plenty of new people coming in the door. Their problem was retention. So that's the other thing about spending your marketing is, before you even start to spend your marketing dollars, what are your KPIs telling you? Where do you need to spend that marketing money? So part of that could be, oh, I need to do these things first before I even get to wanting to spend money on something like that. But you do need to have some type of marketing ready. We call them evergreen campaigns. They're just evergreen. They're just always out there. And typically it's your intro offer, whatever that may be. Right. And then you can do some specific things if you're doing like a free yoga weekend, or you're doing some type of promo or a YTT or a special workshop. Those are different things, but you just constantly have to have your name out there. Because what is it? I mean, it takes, you know, tons of impressions, 30, 40, 50 impressions oftentimes before someone will click.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't it like half years ago, and now it's just
back in the day it was like 7 to 8, and now it's digital age, it's way more, because what that creates is what's called top of mind awareness. Right. Top of mind, a good example is back years ago, I was looking, I was going to get a new car, and I kind of decided, I saw this car that I really liked, and it was fairly new. It was a new style car for the manufacturer, and all of a sudden I started to see it everywhere. And it wasn't because all of a sudden there were more on the road. It's because it was up the top of my mind. It's like, oh, there's one of those. There's one of those. There's one of those. So there is that. So that's the thing with marketing. That's where the marketing versus the advertising comes in. The marketing is your name is out there. It's out there. It's out there. All of a sudden it connects. And like, oh, there's that hot yoga. Oh, yeah, there's that place there. Yeah. Right. So that there's all of that. So you do need to have a plan for that. To do that. So what was, because you did do the onsite this past week. I was jealous of you, Carol. I wasn't able to go this last onsite, but what was a couple of your biggest takeaways from that as a coach?
Well, you were missed, first of all. Oh gosh, I think I said this on the last one when we were on the previous onsite, is like, no matter what space you're in as a studio, like if you've been in business for a long time and you feel like things are dialed in versus like somebody that's new and really needs a lot of help, like this is like the speed at which we can get things done.
You're freezing up a little bit. Well, I think Carol, the internet connection must be a little bit unstable because she is just frozen there. So I think rather than me just sit here and have a soliloquy or a monologue, post your comments below. What are you spending on marketing? What are some of the things that have worked for you? What are the things that haven't worked for you? Do you even know what you're spending on marketing? So post below. And if you don't have a coach, book a free coaching call. All right, go do some yoga. Take care. Bye.